Good day. This is Regina's Rabbit Hole, and it is Wandering Wednesdays. Yep. Yeah. Today we're going to talk about different types of energies. And I am going to chill like I don't see nobody. Get through this. I love this. All right, so times you hear me say walk with me. This time, just chill with me. Hello, much love to you. It's Wandering Wednesdays again. And today we're going to talk about different types of energies. Yeah, different types of energies. Man, this is a crazy freaking matrix. Stop so you can catch up. Slow down. Hurry up. Where are we going? So, I was looking at different types of energies, and we all see things differently. And intent goes a long way, intention. So we don't all have the same intention. We all have different reasons for being, different ways of expressing ourselves. We've been taught different things. We've been indoctrinated with different things. Heck, we even have different blood types, right? The intelligence that we have here would not be considered the same type of intelligence if we were placed in a different environment. It's very possible we would need a different type of intelligence. For instance, being in the city and being in an environment where everybody needs to learn this technology in order to correspond with each other, where even great-grandparents are learning how to use Facebook, or even to use your phone, to access the phone. You've seen people who got left behind a little bit in the tech still have to keep up with the new phones, and depending on the age difference, yeah, for your grandma, the rotary phone where you put your finger in and you push the thing around is much different than an iPhone. And then there's many more uses to the things that we are using. And so it's even the intention and why are we using Facebook or why are we using the telephone reminds me a little bit of Nellie Fuller, where he says that, black folks have been fed a poison, and that if they didn't have anything good to do, then they should stay on the other side of the street and keep going unless it's something that's mutually beneficial and productive that they have an interest in doing in order not to spread the disease. Something like that, very close to that, he said. Perceptions, how they can be poisonous, at the time, and maybe still I don't agree with all the things that the man said, but in regards to that, it seemed pretty strict, but it kind of made sense when you look at some of the programming that we have and some of the things that we've been doing to each other. I mean, if we're not doing those things, I'm sure that being on the same side of the street is cool, right? So keeping that in mind, I'm thinking about information. This guy's perspective was, you better have a good perspective, you know, and have your ducks lined up if you come in this area. And his information, because of his intention, he was trying to eradicate a frame of mind, a disease. And the same way that, now we're talking about different types of energy, mind you, okay? I'm using metaphors again. Dr. Frances Scott Westland, where she talked about the genetic annihilation, you know, the fear of genetic annihilation, you know, and how that could manifest through people's subconscious behavior as well as conscious behavior as a group entity, and how that was manifesting. And she was giving a face to a disease. She was giving a face to an illness. She was giving a face to something that's being fed, in the same way that Nellie Fuller is giving a face to something that's being fed. In the same way that many scholars, we're all teachers giving information from a certain perspective. So it's all bias, but that doesn't have to be a negative connotation. Because what if your intention is your bias being mutually beneficial, if that makes any sense? Knowing that what you're doing is a form of energy and takes on a life form, right? Can start trouble or heal, right? Can start trouble or can make something acidy, or bring a holistic, nurturing, informative kind of frequency or vibration to wherever you are, okay? So I'm looking at different scholars and different information and why I'm looking for that information, right? You know, I like to have a broader view, you know, of a topic, and to be able to go in and out of it. I was looking at how if it all starts with a thought, and we pull our dreams down from the ether world, right? Even unconsciously, they say that a child will be able to, or just naturally have a spirit about them to put up with the same kind of things that the parent did. Like they could say no where you were a yes man, or they could achieve something possibly where you couldn't. If you weren't organized, you might pop children out that are so organized, you know. You know, if you weren't daring, perhaps they would be, you know. That's why they say a lot of parents live their lives through their children, and it shouldn't be where they're trying to dictate their children's life. But I do deem it beautiful to be able to see how my child's character, and have it be beautiful, something to admire, and know that it's totally their own, something that they chose to cultivate, you know, not try to just adopt their good or bad qualities, you know, but allow them to be themselves. I mean, there's things about your children that you're going to see are you, but then there's other things your children do that they morph into their own totally different thing. And that's energy, because everything you are for a period of time is the things you've taught them, as well as the things that the other environments that they're in teaches them, like the educational system. But I'm not going there right now. So we're looking at how even our children can genetically pull down from the ether, from out of the womb space, things that are needed in our cultures, things that are missing, brilliance or medicine, these scholars were needed at the time. They're needed for the message that they have for a particular area. You know what I'm saying? And it's like medicine, that perspective is needed for the collective. It's truth. It had elements of truth, even if we don't want to indoctrinate the entire works of someone. Even if our children don't accept everything that we are, there's things about us, vice versa, that they'll be pleased with, that we'll be pleased of. We might not appreciate everything that they are. And so knowledge, right, is like a child when we take it into ourselves and we nurture it. And so the intention in which people create these works is very important, to look behind the skirts of the intention, the energy behind certain things. What is it vibrating? And so for a long time, I was looking at self-help stuff because I realized, first of all, I kept bumping into myself. I was looking at things like Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, because it's a self-help book and they have these places you can go and you can talk, right? Now, my dad introduced me to AA. He taught me something, and I'm trying to share something with you. When I was like 13, 16 years old, and he brought me there, and it was a place I could go and I could talk. They have these lists of things, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get certain things. Now I'm going somewhere with this. You have to stick around and figure out where it is. From this perspective, I got, in general, I did the best I could with what I had. And it was, to me, a bit better than religion that I had been indoctrinated with as I was growing up, because it gave me permission in my mind to move away some of the other standards that I had been indoctrinated with, and that was my first time, and let me pick what they call the higher power of my own. And so for the first time in my life, I was able to perceive a God of my own, and that was pretty cool, considering I was a little girl that got kicked out of Sunday school for asking, how did Cain and Abel have children if there was only one Eve and Adam? And they say that pedophilia is a sin. I'm trying to figure out where the other children came from. How did her sons procreate if she was the only woman on the whole planet? I mean, please explain that to me. Were there other people on the planet? But that was a no-no. I grew up Episcopalian, and we were like one step down from Catholic. And bottom line is, you really didn't ask questions. You didn't ask those kind of questions. And I was labeled a troublemaker. And it kind of scared me away from asking questions. Although I did, the stuff that I was challenging and asking questions about always seemed to get me in trouble and in really screwed up positions, like challenging pedophilia in my own life. But we're not going there right now. What we're doing is remembering just how much that meant to me, to have somebody put it in writing and put it in my face, tell me that I had permission in this matrix, crack that glass ceiling in my mind that told me that something was wrong with me, and said, you can pick a higher power. Same thing. People call it God. Some people call it this. Some people call it that. And I was the 13 and 16, and then they had these steps and stuff, and the self-help work, and you could write it down, and you could share it with somebody, and you could talk about what you were doing in your life. And I thought, I found something that I can actually do work on myself. My intention, even back then, 16, you know, to work on myself. I knew in my mind, my vocabulary was only to depict it as demons. I had some troubles. I had something I needed to, I was always struggling, fighting something. And I wasn't sure what it was, but we're not going there right now with the gang stalking and stuff like that. What we are doing is talking about energy and the nature that goes behind certain tools. So what I got from that, even though it was fabulous, we're talking about different levels that I'm going to go through here. How I looked at my self-help tools. That's what I'm doing here. I did the best I could what I had. And it was cooler than what I had. And I had been through, you know, a series of different types of churches and stuff by then also. You know, and my life was going really fast. Okay? Then I ran into, what? Woman, Thou Art Lucid by T.D. Jakes. Knowing what I know now about scripture and looking at Santos Bonacci and some occult systems and stuff, and knowing that the book takes on, the Bible takes on other dimensions, I may go through here again and look at these scriptures one more time, okay, and see what takes on different depths and dimensions and stuff for me, because there was a blockage and a resentment there. Not to say that I'm not a religious person. I'm not going back into religion. I'm a spiritual person and being, but I incorporate and look at the different perspectives, and I don't run away from what I was raised from and what the eyes of a lot of people around me are looking from, and how to incorporate that into my own life. My intention is not to block out meaningful things, but to realize what things mean. Okay, so yeah, I might run through that again, even though, you know, I'm not, you know, looking at the Bible the way that it did and stuff like that. I'm looking at myself now, and I'm like, okay, in today's world, barriers. I was looking at barriers back then. The language of letting go. I didn't know this lady made tarot cards. I ran into that the other day. I was like, what? It's a book, The Language of Letting Go. What's today? August 1st. These are self-help tools that I had used. This is what? Anywhere from 30 years ago, 35 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, okay? And the intention, the vibe that I got from these tools. Gratitude, August 1st. We learn the magical lessons that making the most of what we have, it turns into more. Codependent no more. Say thank you until you mean it. Thank God, life, and the universe for everyone and everything sent your way. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend. It turns problems into gifts, failures into success, the unexpected and perfect timing, and mistakes into important events. It can turn an existence into a real life, a disconnected situations into important and beneficial lessons. Gratitude makes sense of all our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. Gratitude makes things right. Gratitude turns negative energy into positive energy. There is no situation or circumstance so small or large that is not susceptible to gratitude's power. We can start with who we are and what we have today. Apply gratitude, then let it work its magic. Say thank you until you mean it. If you say it long enough, you will believe it. Today, I will shine the transforming light of gratitude on all the circumstances in my life. Positive messages to see and crack a hole in the darkness that I had, the gloom that I had in my mind. This book is so old. This book, I had at least 20 years. Oh, well, I don't know how long I had this book. I had it a long time. I don't know when I got this book. I got it when it first came out, and I don't know when it first came out. It's called The Language of Letting Go. And I might check out her cards. Alrighty. Now, then, that was a positive vibration, and I needed that in my life. You know what I'm saying? I started looking at psychology. For those of you who don't know, that's one of my favorite topics to dabble in, and I actually am working in snail mode on a double associates. I like behavioral science and liberal arts and science. I also write. This is a personality book, if you like another nice reference tool. I was trying to figure out what the blip is going on, and one of the places that I started, right? Because this wasn't good enough. It wasn't working. It wasn't breaking this something that was going on with me. So I looked further, and I started looking at psychology. And then when I was learning about psychology, some of it needed to be reverse engineered in order to even use it and apply it to myself. And I was like, what in the world is going on? That shows the energy and the intention behind the tool if you got to do all that. And I was trying to figure out what. Okay. So fast forward. Bam. This explained a lot of stuff. Okay. The art of war. Do you know one of the ways to win a war is to make sure you don't have to fight the war, actually physically? Get somebody psyched out mentally first. I believe they can't even do it. They don't even belong standing up fighting against you. They have no right to. Get them to turn over all their weapons and everything to you, and where they're left bare. I mean, it's psychological. We are in definitely a psychological warfare. A lot of people don't even realize what hit them. Okay. This confirms a lot of the techniques that are even being used with the gang stalking and the gaslighting and the electronic weapons and the social structure. You know what I'm saying? Okay. When that started to look deeper into that, right? The whys of it all. Now this guy, the story of this guy was interesting. He wanted to prove that he was the best at war, you know, and even sacrificed some women. Like he didn't have a problem making an example out of you to make sure you knew he was serious about, you know, about this. And it's a psychology. Okay. And the first thing that this guy teaches is be willing to sacrifice, you know, and that it's in your way that's not following your protocol, so that you can instill fear in the rest of the ranks and let them know you know business. But what about the healing of it all? I was still looking for stuff. I found Queen Afua. That's on a whole nother branch of things. You know what I'm saying? The sacred woman. You know, I found a mystery. You know, I was looking for information for the longest time on Groundhog's Day and Easter eggs. You know, the missing days that happened with the story of Kemet theology, the creation story, the beginning. You know, a creation story where they talk about the Binu bird, and then they go into start talking about Isis and how she wanted to have children, you know, and how they took the days. And when I looked at the story, you got to listen to the story yourself, but this will sound sporadic to anybody who doesn't know this information. But when I started seeing all these hidden things in a particular area, like the triple black goddess, you know, and a Bennu bird, and Africa and Sudan, and all these things were connecting with the Essenes, and how I started to see the characters morph and to depictions of other characters as I looked at who this Christ figure was throughout theology. I always thought, you know, I have it. And then Krishna, is it Krishna? Oh, maybe I can see the connections there. Yeah, but it was always something else deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's how finally I found, you know, ourselves in the sacred woman and the triple black goddess. And there's always more to know. And looking at people's intention, there's an energy that leads to either a beautiful aroma, a sacred smell, knowledge is something that you can hold on to, and a truth, you know, it's soothing, you know, it's beautiful, versus a lie and something contaminated and something that has something behind it that's dark and it stinks. You know, to become more sensitive to the foul smell and a wretched odor behind some of the stuff that is hiding the very nature, you know, of things sustaining us. You know, that something was deliberately keeping us in ignorance in many different areas, and that there were a lot of different curtains, and that, you know, when you think you have it, like a maze, you know, there was another door and another door and another door. And I began to feel like when it comes to the nature of energy and you start to see it take a face, how do you combat that? How do you contend with that? How do you get along with it? Started thinking, how do you nurture? How do you balance? Started looking for different words even to be able to deal with the concept of something that's been here, that's gonna be here, you know? Start thinking about why. And you start seeing that people's intention definitely will give the, yeah, it gives off an aura, a picture of something. So why I do things was very important, and that what I realized most of all, which is really freaky, is that many times we don't even realize that we're doing stuff. It's unconscious. So there's different levels of that mess. Then when I realized that, I still found out about MK, you know, about mind control and, you know, programming people. That's a whole nother level of unconscious. You know, I'm not talking about unconsciously doing things because we don't know that we're jealous, or we don't know that we're prejudiced, or we don't know that we're insecure. You know, we don't know the 7 deadly sins, like something that we didn't realize we were doing, right? There's those things, and then they're on a different level where we don't know because the wool has been pulled over our eyes. Like we're, you know, our own foreskin, our own stuff has been pulled over our eyes, and we can't see what's going on in our society, that we've been programmed to keep the initiative, to keep a beat, you know what I'm saying, to this machine that's eating spirits. Like a lot of us don't even know what hit us. A lot of us don't know about sociology, anthropology, and psychology, so that you can actually see things, you know, how to read people. And then even if you do, right, I was thinking to myself, even if you do know these things, Regina, how can you beat your own self? Because part of mind control is to know that you don't really know that you're mind controlled, right? How are you going to know? And then never figure out, what are you going to do about it? And so, making sure that my attention is in a place that I deem mutually beneficial is the most important thing to me when I go through information. And so not BSing myself is something that I meditate on and constantly challenge myself with because of the nature of my background, how I grew up, the kind of things that I was confronted with, a lot of contradictions, a lot of gaslighting, sexual, mental, and emotional abuse that I have overcome for the most part. What I was learning is there's always a different level, and we want to seem all buttoned up and that we have it together. And there's always the finer details and things, the remnants, resin stuck on the glass, needs to be refined, but there's things that you can do to get rid of that, right? So I had to go deeper and go into essence and started, when you look at universal law, our intention will lead us to the things, like it brings the whole energy itself, will lead us to the things that we need. Thank goodness, oh my gosh. But will we let it? That's the other problem. Will we let those things come? One of the hardest things, if you've been without something, is to allow yourself to have it also. There's a flip side to certain energies and stuff. Good day. Okay, so I started looking at more of the essence and stuff. And then that's when the evolution of the language of letting go and that AA book was, I started looking at Al-Anon. What? Now, I looked at that 20 years ago, but it didn't snap in my mind because I, too, was also caught up in the grips. I was in between two worlds. Weird, right? And I didn't have the mentality to catch the perception because I was still playing victim, but I was still sick. But yeah, I was trapped in that undertows of victim mentality because I didn't have any new tools to get out of it. And I didn't even realize what was happening to me and what hit me. So there was levels to it. Even if I could do the work and realize this stuff, I didn't know that there was the other stuff there that was programming people to get stuck in certain niches and groups in society. Okay? But what I'm really talking about is tools right now. So the evolution to that was is taking responsibility for self. That's what I got from this. That I learned, hey, well, I got to start taking responsibility for myself. And there's a broader picture to this. This is hereditary. I started seeing how, even in the psychology and in the sociology, how things were following trends and patterns within families and stuff. Okay? Now, started getting into, this is a really cool self-help tool. ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. Now this book right here is not, they say it's not on their official materials, but I rather like it because it got to the gristle. It was like, forget I did the best I could with what I had. This is the disease, and it just uprooted it and showed, it pulled the thing inside out and showed its face and left it at that. Okay? When it comes to behavior and addiction, I could really appreciate this from the standpoint of psychology, you know, and behavioral modification. This book goes in, but you have to have the intention and the mentality to even sink your teeth into it, because a lot of people are stuck at different stages of looking at this picture where it's still a space where it's out of your hands. It's still a space where who would put this? It's still a space that allows you to screw up, you know? Jot something down on a piece of paper, go and set it out, like religion, you know, like going to church. Go tell the preacher, you know, Hail Mary, then, you know, play with your beads a little bit, get on your knees. I'm sorry, light a candle, go about your business. And a few days later, a week later, maybe even that day, a couple of hours within, you know what I'm saying? Before the new year hits, you have to make another resolution and stop doing that crap again. Like, where is the power and authority? But universal law says something entirely different. But not if we don't know it. It was the same difference between not being aware that I could pick my own higher power and having to have something crack open that glass ceiling in my mind. You know what I'm saying? To bang on my little noggin a little bit. They say our brain, we're only using what portion of it? You know? Do we still realize that the coffee pot is also a teapot? It also heat up some soup and boil an egg and, you know, and keep something warm. I mean, things, it can distill water if you hook it up right, a coffee pot. It could be a water distiller. Okay? So, the different levels of medicine, for instance, the difference between the regular medical advice that we get and Dr. Inky or Dr. Sabi zeroing in on a particular area that was needed, okay? Because if people hadn't started getting nosier about melanin and the way that it responds and reacts to things, how will we know? If we didn't have different levels of intention to be able to want to discover these things, how will we know? Some of us go deeper into things, and the intention allows us to unlock different levels according to universal law. Do you know they say you have a level of melanin inside also to access things? That thing that is a level of knowledge, is a level of wisdom that allows somebody to sift through so much information where they figure out how to regurgitate their downloads, you know, and then upload it back up to, you know, our brothers and sisters or whatever, so that we can get it. There's so many people that I'm getting information from that give back to me, and the intention of that thing is something that I've learned to start letting resonate with me. But I also know that we're all a self, we're a reflection of each other, and to start looking at myself and these things. And sometimes I don't like what I see. We don't have to always like what we see. We take what we need and we leave the rest, and that's part of the maturity level that I'm learning to have. Not with everything, but at least I'm learning that. So that's the difference between the theory of evolution, you know, and looking at human design. You know, there's just different levels, okay? Darkness and blackness and, oh man, how I used to look at that word, how it used to set up all these negative alarms in my brain when it's so silly, you know, certain things will pinpoint the level of programming that I have to myself. If I allow myself to be honest about it, I reflect on myself as if I'm someone else and allow myself to do an observation, you know. Black being the embodiment of all things. And then even knowing that you need to have a certain amount of darkness in order for your pineal gland to be healthy, turning off electronics and closing your eyes, that it needs exposure to light as well as dark, you know, and some of the techniques that they use by exposing, you know, penetrating the pineal gland in total darkness and then exposing it to light would set off, you know, these spiritual experiences, these Kundalini experiences. Dan Winters would talk about some of the stuff in his information, you know, and he talks about, he's an electrical engineer, and he talks about in layman's terms, in terms that you can understand, changing those electrical terms, that terminology, into practical application, things that we can actually use and like work with. They don't just like do the mathematics, which you know, and I like this, you know, but they show the pictures and the schematics that fractal view, you know. You know, what in the world is that? Anyway, yeah, so that was kind of weird. Can you guys still see me? Okay, so he shows the schematics and stuff, so you can actually see the way shapes and stuff move, which is really, really cool. I don't know why that won't stop. You know what? I don't even know what that is or why it won't stop. But I wish whoever is calling me would cut. Good day. This is Regina's Rabbit Hole again. Much love to you and yours. We got cut off. This continuation of me talking about energy. This is Wandering Wednesdays. Okay? Notice I just got a phone call again, and there's something deliberately interrupting with my feed. So I'm going to try to finish this up. I'll be adding this to the other part, and you can find it on YouTube on Regina's Rabbit Hole. Now, back to blackness. That's what I was talking about. Realizing how, you know, melanin even needs time to sit in the darkness, you know, and then go into the light, and how you can have these experiences that Dan Winters was talking about, our Kundalini experiences, spiritual awakenings and stuff. There were certain methods and stuff that we used that have been buried in our history that we are not talking about, along with talk about blackness and melanin. What the intention and the reasons why they do things. Now, I was listening to a lecture from Inky, Dr. Inky, and I came across, he did this thing in 2011, this lecture, but he mentioned a book that he was reading called Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires. And I forget the name of the guy who wrote that book, but I was definitely catching the information, some of it today, but we'll be going over this week. Fascinating stuff about how, just what it is, mummies, cannibals, and vampires. They used to eat us. They liked eating people. They liked eating, particularly in Europe, melanated people. Those picnics with hanging people and all that kind of stuff, it was about cannibalism, you know, and the medicines and stuff like that. This is this book, Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires, is actually a textbook on ancient medicine. And you can actually look up those words and you'll catch this guy on the YouTube who has been doing these documentaries and stuff on that. I might, matter of fact, I'll slip a link in there for you when I finish piecing the pieces together. Okay, so the intention behind why leave something like that out? Why make it so difficult to be able to look for certain particular information like the Sibyls? Now, this red moon energy, there's so many different levels, and a lot of times we don't even know when we're fooling ourselves. So how? Now I ask, spirit, fire, water, earth, air, and ether, how do I not get fooled? How do I help myself at all, when I feel like such a small entity in such a big arena of things doing all this stuff, and I'm being taught, I have been taught to feel like I'm this small, even that song, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. It gives me permission, but it says this little light. These people, they're taught that they have giant lights, that they're humongous, that they're gods, that they're big, that they're titans. They got big secrets. They got big kahunas. The mentality to be able to talk. Hey, sweet pea. The mentality, we're taught that we're so itty bitty and so insignificant, but that's not true at all. So even looking at the way universal law works and the way the energy moves and the way that we are adjacent, correspondent to each other, even the zodiac doesn't have one sign. We're on a wheel and we interact like the tetrahedron in the different shapes, and how we turn inside out. We're different aspects of ourselves, different perspectives, from different points of view and different places where we are, from wherever we are. If the heart space is the key, the pentagram is also a cube if you pull it inside out, if you look at the shapes, the language of letting go was also the difference between, I did the best I could with what I had, and I'm glad I got a program so that I'm not in the bar anymore, and I'm work on not hurting anybody anymore. But the carnage that's left behind is painful. When we do things to hurt other people and hurt people, sometimes it's really hard to deal with that stuff. And so I find a lot of people, just like, I was looking at this when I was very, very young. People were doing the same thing. They'd walk in, wax on, wax off. We talk a really good talk, but where does it penetrate? where does the intentions really go, you know, and just looking at things. It was a different stage, you know what I'm saying? Different stages of development, different stages of looking, and different freaking ways of looking at things. And this guy said, "Woman, thou art lucid." And yeah, I was all swept away in tears and just shedding a lot of, purging a lot of things 20, 15 years ago, whatever, you know what I'm saying? From the topics that I had that he touched in my life. And there was a lot of writing and journaling and, you know what I'm saying, getting rid of stuff. And then you think, I've got it. Then you pick up a psychology book and you're on another level and you might think, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about the heart space, trying to clean that stuff out. That, you know what I'm saying? That it can be a long, frustrating journey when you're really trying to get at that, you know? My vibe attracts my tribe. And then when you see things that look like you, or you see people that are, sometimes we reject who it is and what it is that we are. We reject different aspects of ourselves, not realizing that we're actually looking at ourselves in different stages of transformation, and different spaces of intent, and different heart spaces in different places, just like the chakra system. You know what I'm saying? Some of us are caught in a groove, but to be understanding of that, to be able to see that and walk around it, reflect on it, incorporate it still. You know what I'm saying? To not walk away from certain tools, to be able to take what you need and leave the rest, to be able to glean the entire picture without having to shove it down the person's throat. You know what I'm saying? There's no picketing or anything like that going on. Stating what I'm feeling and my own journey through, you know, just a small smidgen of the tools and stuff that I found useful and why. And the way that energy moves has a great deal to do with the intention on what we really, really, truly want to get at. And I'm not saying that's good or bad or right or wrong. I'm not saying I don't believe that certain things are right or wrong, although I'd rather use the words counterproductive and mutually beneficial. You know what I'm saying? That's some bull versus that's something I like. That's something I can enjoy personally. You know what I'm saying? I might have biases that I don't even know about, and that's why I don't like a particular thing. You know? For instance, there's certain disciplines that I don't like because I don't like discipline. I like the free flow of things. But it doesn't mean that I know that I'm causing some trouble with my lack of discipline. That I might cause waves, that might be counterproductive for others. But that's a choice. And then what is my intention behind it? If I decide to keep a certain behavior, and then is it okay in some places and not in others? Just self-reflection. You know what I'm saying? That's not too dangerous, right? Just talking about tardiness. You know? So when I started looking at the Essenes and darkness and the triple black goddess and, you know, February the 2nd, and looking at Kemet theology, the creation story, the Bennu bird, started looking at the way certain theologies and dogmas take on a different shape depending on what culture that you're in. And the same way with these tools, depending on what we're getting at, what you're trying to get at and why. I found, now during this red moon energy, that's what I was getting at. For those of you who are going through the time when you're working really, really hard at fixing certain things in your life, you really are working at cleaning this stuff out. And a fair shot for lack of better words, we know how words get twisted and stuff. So if I use one of those words, okay, don't fault me too much on it. Just, you know, you truly want to become the next best person, next to the next best person, doing something that's really mutually beneficial, that's helping to fix your life, knowing that that very thing that you're doing is going to be helpful to the person next to you. That kind of environment. You know what I'm saying? To get to that place, other people have to want to be on the same page and within the same mentality. It will be a shared frequency and wave, you know. In the same way that our society is in a certain groove and soaking in and taking in particular informations, right? That makes up our social structure and design, has been worked to serve a certain agenda. We can take tools and untwist them in the other direction, reverse engineer the energy with our intention. I figured as long as I'm looking for a particular space inside myself, I'm always going to end up on top of it. And so I ended up, I was looking for some really cool divination cards. You know, I'm not into them a lot, but I'm looking into them more. You know, and these were geared toward personal reflection, which I thought was really cool. Oh, man, this book tore a hole in my butt. All that work that I thought I did, these cards are not plain, but it's the universe's, the oracle of the ancient Sibyls. An ancient culture that was unraveled and buried under other cultures that have become quite lucrative in our present day society, actually pulled from a lot of the essence from the Sibyls. And I thought essence was kind of cool because it goes with the Essenes. If you don't know about the Essenes, and getting into some of the biblical history, and then being able to tie that biblical history into astrology, biblical astrology. Was pretty cool, okay? And so my intention was to be able to change so many different things. And then I ran into human design, which is actually doing an experiment, the human design experiment. And sometimes I realize that we are what we are. And right now I'm wandering and reflecting, wandering through information as I do more discovery on sometimes we are what we are. Like my brown skin, I love it. And I am what I am, and I'm a woman, and I am what I am, and sometimes we want to change things. You know, we want to change a natural seed to GMOs so that we can control a population. We want to change what we are so that we don't have to have the consequences of being. We don't want to feel the remnants of whatever it is that we're trying to run away from. We don't want to be that. We don't want to feel that. We don't want to do that. And a lot of it's in our unconscious mind. We're taught many times not to be certain things, you know, to be quiet, to be a good girl, to not ask questions, to not be sexual. It's okay for a transvestite to be more girl than me as a girl, to work extra hard and not to be cute, and for them to even get paid for it. But if I be a girl, I'm out of line and I need to settle down and do a whole list of things. You know, it's the way that we're looking at things as a whole. And so as I wander around, I'm wondering, when is it okay just to be? And that's what it came down to. I mean, I'm still looking for ways to improve myself, but I'm also finding the balance, and I'm learning to find the balance and to like breathe into the fact that I'm just being, you know, to just be, that it will all work out according to the universal plan, because that's what I've been doing. I wouldn't have even learned all these things or been able to sustain myself through the purging process that I went through so many different times over, thinking that that was the level, you know what I'm saying, that was going to get me over the hump. And then it just wasn't piercing anything. I know now that I know that I'm doing what I need to be doing, and I have been this entire time. It's been a journey. My journey to be able to find what it is that you know that I'm set out to do for my particular design. Just like these other people that came up with these tools that I'm looking at, right? And with their intentions, no matter where they were, those tools were there to meet me wherever I was at that conjunction. And even now, being able to take that information, all the information, and utilize it to the best of my ability, taking what I need and leaving the rest, is pretty awesome. You know? Like children, you know, adopted children, you know, and by universal law, I guess you could say they're my corresponding frequency. My vibe attracted my tribe, you know. And so we just have to realize that that stuff doesn't go away that we went through. It's a part of us. Although that we can evolve and grow into a whole nother being, there's always going to be parts of ourselves that are still echoing, you know, and still need to be healed and to be made whole. And admitting that and allowing that to happen, making space for that, is also a part of the journey, as well as a big part of it is acknowledging it. If we don't know what's there, that's if we won't admit and don't know and can't see it, it's a big hindrance. And that's part of technology, is to have a limited amount of, you know, a very narrow perspective allows us to stay sick. You know, it doesn't give us the kick, you know, that we need. And so basically that's what I wanted to say, and Regina's Rabbit Hole on Wandering Wednesdays. And so much love to you and yours. Thank you for joining me. And you have a great evening. I'm out. Hope this was useful to you.